Today I want to create this skeleton character, and let me see how it works out. This is a challenging character to create, so let me start with the eyes, and I'll start with the rounded eyes for the character. One of my favorite scenes in the Dragon's Lair video game is when the Dirk the Daring is walking through this hallway with all these rooms, and one of the cool things about it was all these skeletons started pouring out of the sides of the rooms from the other openings of the room, and they were just mostly skulls, but it was really cool. I actually had a dream when I was a kid of this giant castle. It was like a modern futuristic castle. It reminded me of the opening ship in Star Wars. It looked kind of like that, where everything was all bright. But anyway, I was going through that castle, and there was this one room. It was all dark in there. You couldn't see anything, and there was this evil person floating in the room. So I got out of there really quick, and then I ended up in this one room that was part of my old home where I used to live, and I looked out the window and it was all nighttime and dark, and floating towards the window were like hundreds and hundreds of skulls. It was like so weird, and it was such a crazy dream. I think I was only probably like 12 years old or maybe younger when I had that dream. I still could visualize it in my mind. I'll have to try to recreate that dream in a actual animation. I could do that. That'd be cool just to see it again. I always wish there was a way you could record some dreams and remember what happened in them and try to figure out the logic of it and what the dream was trying to express. I think a lot of times dreams are based on what's happening in your life, and then you just have to interpret what they mean, what the dream means. And as far as like if a dream can see into the future and all that stuff, I'm not really sure. I've never really had too many dreams that really were like amazing predictions or anything like that. Alright, so this one set of teeth here look a little off here. I have to remember those are the two front teeth of this skeleton, so let me just set this up a little better here. There we go. Rather than just one tooth, I have two now for that section there. Alright, and that's looking similar to what I'm going for here. These bags under the eyes, that wouldn't really be with a skeleton, but I'll put them in there anyway. And now I'll just create a crack in the head, sort of. And then this part here, I could just do something like that, and then maybe something like that. Now the lower skull let me the jaw, let me start that right now and see how this turns out. And then I'll just connect the dots and go from there. But yeah, with the part with the skulls, Dirk has to jump out of the way so they don't surround him and capture him. That was always a really cool scene, and they make this weird sound, almost like at a zoo or something. It was a weird sound. I could hear it in my mind right now. But here's the lower jaw, so let me get that drawn right there and have like a little chin for this jaw. And then since it'll tilt backwards, I'll extend that up a little bit. And then for this part, I guess I could do that. Yeah, that'll work for what I'm going for. Alright, so now I'll just connect that, and then I could keep that a lighter color or just paint it in. If I paint that in, it'll look like that. And then I gotta paint this in and this and this. I think that works. Only thing is I have to fill in the gaps now. If you look really close, if I zoom in and then look here, you could see what I'm talking about. There are these little lines that the reason that these lines are forming is because the line that I drew was not perfectly square. In other words, the line has like soft edges to it, and that's what creates this little stencil of the line not fully connected to the paint. So if I left that in there, I mean, there's a quick solution, and that's just blur the painting. You just go into blur and just do that. But I guess I'll work on this for now, and just now that I'm zoomed in, I'll just work on these lines here. And the bags under the eyes are not necessary, but I feel they add a little bit of character to the skeleton. And these I like to just smooth out those lines so they're not so rounded at the edges. And then that line right there too. And up here I just cleaned that up a little there, and then there. Alright, so that looks pretty decent for what I'm going for here. And then next thing I have to do is finish this here really quick. Let me just test it out. If I blurred it, let's see what would happen. I just want to see. Yeah, I mean, it does help. It's just that you can still see a little bit of line through there. So I'll undo that and just finish this really quick here. But I did notice that for like Blu-ray or even DVD, to blur out your character just a little bit will sometimes reduce what's called the shimmer, where on DVD or Blu-ray certain lines or certain patterns of the lines, if they're too sharp, you get like a shimmer effect and it looks really weird. So I tend to just do one layer of blur, and that reduces the chances of that. Alright, so that is pretty good progress for what I was going for there. Alright, next thing I'll do is the torso of this skeleton. And let's see, I'll just draw a really simplified skeleton here. It's not going to be like detailed or anything. And I'm just trying to visualize what a skeleton looks like, and I haven't studied one in a while, but I remember it's got the front rib cage and the bones and all that. I'll just keep it really simple. I'm not going to draw all the in-between lines and all that stuff. One thing I did learn is to try not to have too many parallel lines. Like, I don't want to have this line be exactly parallel. It just, I mean, sometimes in nature that happens though, where the lines are parallel, so there's not much you can do about it. But that was one thing I learned in art school, college, where I had this life drawing class, and one of the professors there was, he said he was a Disney animator artist, and that he was taught to not draw the lines parallel. That's a rough looking rib cage, but oh well. Alright, so moving on. It's just to get a cartoon look for it, that's all. Alright, so now that I have that, I have to draw this part here, and that goes something like that, a weird part, and then this piece could go like that or something. I don't know, something like that. And then I have to draw the legs and the arms, but before I do that, I should probably round this out a little. Maybe just add a little more dimension to it by putting these edges in there. Alright, so next thing I'll do is the let's see, I can probably draw the one bone, and that'll represent all the limbs, and then I just replicate the limbs from there. So I'll just draw a line there. That looks a little off. I'll fix that line a little right there. And then for these, don't really add to it. And then for the arms, I'll just use this for the, oh no, the forearm is a little different. The forearm goes kind of like this. And then there's this weird piece here that does something like that. something weird like that, and then I might as well draw the hands in there. Something like that. And then I think there are little holes in there like that. Something like that. Alright, so next thing I have to do is the foot of the skeleton, and I could just draw that really simple. Oh yeah, it's got like a really big heel. It really extends out for a skeleton. Just trying to visualize it and remember what it looks like. Alright, well that's good enough for now. Nothing fancy here. I'm not using any reference, so it's going to be a little weird. Alright, so next thing I'll do now that I have that is I'd like to have like a sword for this character, so he's holding like a sword. So because of that, I want to make sure that hand will hold the sword. So let me just do that right now and just make a hand in the holding position. Sort of like that. Nothing fancy. Alright, now the sword I'll just throw in right here. Just a weird looking sword. And then just extend it like that. And then remember not to make the lines too parallel, just to give it a little more of an interesting look to it. I guess that's okay. Alright, so that's it. And now I have to paint all this in. So I'll delete that. What I could do actually, now that that's all like that, there's a trick. Actually it would create a white outline, so that won't work. I was going to just take that white and just trace around it and piece the white into the background there, but it's probably just easier to do it like this. Just paint right in there. And the reason I'm doing this instead of that other method is because this will be within the black lines, so you get a smooth outer black line. Because I remember I used to do a lot of scanning, and when I took the image and like pulled out all the shape around it, sometimes you'd have like little white specks around the black line, like traced all around it, because there was a edge to it from the other white part of the paper that always like showed through. So that was one of the things I remember I have to be aware of. Alright, so this is almost finished. I have to get that. Oh, there it is. Let me go back to this bone color. There it is. And then his sword should be maybe like a gray color. It's really basic, boring sword. Actually, the sword itself should be gray, and the hilt, the handle, should maybe be a different color. For that, I think I'll just change the color a little bit. Maybe like that. Just to give it a little more variation. So then for the sword itself, maybe like a blue would be cool. I'm sorry, the hilt itself. Maybe like that, and then just go with a darker color there. You probably won't even see that since he'll be holding the sword most of the time. Alright, but I always liked Ray Harryhausen, those old movies where the skeletons had the swords, and then the video game Golden Axe. That was always one of my favorite Sega Genesis games. Golden Axe. Alright, so now that I have that, I'm just going to merge that. Merge down. You could do merge visible too, but I'll just do a quick blur and smooth all this out a little bit so it's not such a rough, not such a sharp look to it all. And you could barely tell what happened there, but it smoothed it out a little bit. Alright, and then for this I just want to get back to smoothing these out a little bit. Just to give it a little more dynamic lines so they're not so boring. Only because like sometimes the camera will zoom in and you'll see more of the details up close, so it's nice to have a little more visual variety to it. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I'm satisfied, and I'll just do a export and make sure I have it saved. Took me a while to get decent at drawing skulls. I have to remember that this part here extends back. Sometimes I would just cut it off right here, and I was like, what looks different, what looks off about it? But that's not too bad. This skull here, it's just a cartoon, so it doesn't have to be perfect. Alright, now this is cell shaded in just a very basic cell shading, so I don't have to shade any of this in. Now the next thing I'll do is take this piece here and just outline it, and now I'll start to separate everything. Copy, cut, paste. That'll help me select the other layers easier. So I could call this the skull. And then I'll pick all these other layers and just go from there. What's cool about this character, I could add him to other cartoons that I'm working on. Since it's like a skull, you could do a lot with. And then the sword, I'll just put there. And then for this part here, this is the torso. I think it turned out okay. It's not perfect. I could have I know what I could do. I could have some air seeping through. So one way I could do that is to maybe just have a couple holes peeking through. So maybe something like that, and then add one here so it's on the same spot, and maybe one up here, just to give it a little more and then what I do before I do anything else is just select those little spots and just go edit, cut, and now I have a little more dimension to this. A little bit looks a little weird, but what are you gonna do? It at least gives it a little more of a sense of a skeleton. Alright, so next thing I'll do is go back to selecting this piece here. And then edit, copy, cut, paste to new layer. And that would be called the torso. This piece here is called the jaw, and then this is the big key bone for the arms and the legs. So I could call that leg arm bone, whatever. And then this is the arm, forearm. And then finally this part here is the hand, the fist. What I could do is just connect it to this arm, or I could just make that other arm and copy and paste the forearm and then just glue it to the other limb. Alright, so now that I have all those pieces, I could get rid of the empty layer and just make all these visible. And the one thing I'd like to do is, let's see, I'll bring this skull up here and then move it above the torso so I can see what's going on here. Then bring the jaw underneath the skull. Let's see what that looks like. I mean, that's not too bad. And then image fit canvas to layers so I can move up and see everything. And I have to decide if I want the character to have a big skull like that, But before I get to that, let me start working on this here, the arm bone. And the first thing I'd like to do is just duplicate that and just rotate it. So I'll do that. And then I'll just move it over here. And then you could see the forearm goes right to it really nicely. So let me duplicate the forearm. Actually, rather than do that, I'll just separate this piece here. This way, all I have to do is change the hands instead of the whole forearm. So I need to copy that and then cut it and then paste to new layer. Now I could go back to my forearm and just clean this up so the box is not so gigantic. This way I have more control over it. So edit, copy, paste to new layer. I didn't have to cut it, I'll just delete that old forearm layer. And now I have the forearm here, but I could just merge it with the with that other limb there, or just leave it separate. And it'd be interesting to see what happens if it's kept separate. This layer is open hand, and I'll just move that right about there. So when he opens his hand and then when he closes, that looks about right. The fist is a little bit bigger than the open hand, so I'll just expand the scale of the open hand a little. Alright, next thing I'll do is the other arm. So now that I have that arm like that, I'm thinking I'm just going to blend these two together. I think that would be easier. Forearm. Now this is the arm bone, and then this is the leg bone. So I'll just call this leg. So I have to take that leg bone, bring it over here, and just put it right about there. I wonder what it looks like flipped. Yeah, I think that looks better that way. So I'll just go like that. I'm just wondering here. Just like to give it a little bit more of a forward bend. Like that. You can see that expanded the square around it a little bit, but that's no big deal. Alright, so next thing I'll do is extend that leg bone, duplicate, layer. Now a quick way to do it is to just do a vertical flip, and there's the bend already. I don't have to go to the bend tool. Next thing I want to do is image, fit canvas to layers. So there I go, I got my space to fill that in, and then put the foot down there right about there, and then I want to bring that underneath, something like that. This bone here will be under that bone. And then you could put a shin bone there, but usually that would fall off since that's almost like a separate bone contained by cartilage. Alright, so now that I have that, the skull is really gigantic, but it works for like an exaggerated cartoon. But for this right now, I'm just gonna resize it a little bit to be a little bit more proportioned for this character. There we go. I think that looks a little better. And then next thing I'll do, I don't want to lose that progress, so I'll save it. I have to just realize the arms are way too big, and I'll shrink those down. Or I could, yeah, the arms are just too big. Alright, so I'm just going to simplify this. I have to find that other arm bone. There it is. So I'll take this, I'll merge down to that, so now I have a single arm. And then I'll have these here, but before I do that, I'll just reduce the scale of this, just so it's a little more proportion. So probably right about there. Yeah, it looks a lot better now. And then I'll just move that out here a little bit. And then I'll duplicate it. And then I have to duplicate these as well. But now I have to bring these pieces all the way down here underneath the torso. And it helps that they're linked so I can recognize them right away. And keep them linked so I could just pull this piece out over here. And I'll just do a reverse, transform, flip horizontally. And then just have his arms facing down that way. I'll rotate it slightly, take the pivot and just put it up there and pull the arm out a little more so you can see it better. Like that. His torso could be a little bit longer. Yeah, I think just a little bit. So I'll go to his torso and pull that down just a little bit. Like that. Then I'll take that leg. Let's see, where's the leg? I'll merge these two and go like that. I just thought of something, but it's no big deal. Let's say I wanted to break this skeleton apart. I could have just had all individual bones there and then just go from there. But I feel it's easier to just keep it all a single piece. It's a lot less. The less layers you have for your character, the faster the work screen will be. Alright, so the arm on the back is always going to be behind the leg on the other side here. So this bone here I can actually leave there and it still works. Or I could just bring it in front of the torso like that. Just wondering, maybe it both of them. No, one of them. I think I should have both of them out front like that. They probably would be a little lower, maybe about here. And then the other Where's that other leg? There it is. How to get up there. Alright, so both those legs are up there. The arms are in the right spot. The hand is way too small. So one thing I'll do is go to my open hand and just rescale it so it's more exaggerated, so it's not so tiny. If you resize stuff too many times, what can happen is you start to really blur it out. It starts getting really blurry and you lose the detail. Alright, so next thing I'll do is get that sword over there. And that'll be the front arm. So he'll hold the weapon like that. And I could actually just leave it like that for now and then just do a layer, flip horizontal, and then I'll just do a quick image, fit canvas to layers. See how it cleans all that extra space up? This way you don't have this gigantic character with unnecessary space. Alright, for that lower jaw, it looks a little bare bones. So let me zoom in on that. See, that's what I was referring to earlier. If you look, let's just put a layer, new layer. See how you could see the white outline there? That's what would have happened if I selected all the... Wow, that's weird. I have to go to the torso. If I selected all the white background and pasted it onto the black lines, I would have had all these white lines to deal with. So that's why I just decided to go the way I did. Save all this hassle. Because then you get a weird effect when you're looking at the character against a dark background. You'd see all these white lines shining through. So I'll just go through here and clean that up. It's not too much, so it only takes a minute. There we go. So there it is. There's the skeleton character. I'll delete that layer there. And now I'll just go into Anime Studio Pro after I save this, and then just import it there and create the skeleton for the skeleton. Alright, thanks for watching. Feel free to subscribe, like, comment, and share. And I hope you learned something. Thanks again.